and welcome to Crescent Podcast. I'm your host Lucy and I run Crescent Digital Marketing, working with small local businesses in Kent to create engaging online content, usually in the form of social media management, but also website content design and newsletter creation. Big shout out today to our new sponsor, Purple Frog Signs Limited, who are based in Gillingham. They deliver standout designs that reflect your business at its best, and you can find out more at their website, purplefrogsigns.com. Today is probably going to be quite niche, but it's so interesting, and I think it's definitely something people should be more aware of. I'm joined by Kate, who is a trichologist and runs hair therapy. So she specialises in helping people with hair loss and scalp conditions. Welcome to the podcast, Kate. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. So why don't you explain what trichology actually is? Because I definitely didn't even know it was a word when we first started talking.
Yeah, and obviously this is part of the problem, that if no one knows what I am or what I do, then it's really difficult for me to help people. So that is one of my missions, is to try and spread the word on trichology, and it's basically the science behind the hair and scalp. So I'm a specialist in all things hair and scalp, so hair loss, any scalp conditions, any issues. I can help people before and after cancer treatment, and just anything basically kind of not hairdressing related. But obviously my background is in hairdressing, so I can help with that as well. But those more of the scientific side and the actual aspect of the health.
Okay. So why don't you talk us through your journey and how you ended up doing that? You mentioned you're a hairdresser as well, so...
Yeah, so I started hairdressing quite a while ago, about 25 years ago, and absolutely loved it. So been doing that ever since. I soon got into education. So originally my idea was to become an MVQ assessor, just to help assess the students that we had in the salon, the apprentices. And then after I'd done my training, the organisation that I did my training with actually offered me a teaching job with them. Yeah, so I started assessing students in all different salons in London, including places like Errol Douglas, which was amazing because then I got to see all different salons and stuff as well, and different ways of working, and really, really loved that. So I've been in education for kind of over 20 years now. And even though I was teaching in all aspects of hairdressing, I still had never even heard of trichology. So I didn't even know what a trichologist was. And I think this is part of the problem, really, that I like to try and collaborate with local salons and spread awareness with professionals as well. Because otherwise you find people kind of end up getting maybe sent to their GP, maybe referred to a product, and not really getting to the person that can really help. So I went on a hair health evening, which was run by the Fellowship of British Hairdressing in 2019. And Robert Eaton was hosting, and he is an amazing hairdresser. He's won British Hairdresser of the Year at least twice. And he's also a trichologist. And so he then explained, him and another colleague, Beverly, explained trichology, how they'd got into it and how they were able to help their patients now on this far kind of deeper level. And it was just like that, just even knowing about it, I was just like, yes, this is where I need to go now. I need to know more about this. And literally on the train home on that day, I was emailing the Institute of Trichology in London saying, sign me up for your next course. I need to do this. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I imagine that people, if they have like a problem with their scalp, they might ask, or their hair loss or something like that, they might see their GP or they might ask their hairdressers. But can you actually diagnose people?
Yeah, and I think this is part of the problem. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for the NHS, and I'm not saying, oh, doctors are rubbish or what have you, but this is why we have specialists in certain areas. And unfortunately, although GP might be able to diagnose, say, a fungal infection or a common form of hair loss, there may often be something they might miss, or they may not be aware of some of the conditions that are out there or how to best treat them. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a lottery, like going to see your hairdresser. You might find some will have more knowledge than others. A lot of their knowledge on scalp issues and products will come from a brand and a product company rather than from a scientific educational basis. So they might have elements of knowledge, but they won't necessarily, again, know how to recognise every condition or exactly what to do about it. GPs, obviously, over their training, they might get a couple of days, maybe, in kind of 4 years on the hair and scalp and problems. And, unless they're updating their knowledge on hair loss, they're not going to be up to date with the most current things that we're going to see most often. So that's where I can really come in and bridge that gap. And unfortunately, I often see people who have been to their GP, sometimes 2 or 3 times, desperate for help and advice, and found that they haven't got a clear diagnosis, they've not really got an answer, or they've not really been taken very seriously. And once you've been to your hairdresser and said, look, I've got this issue, and they say, well, it's not an area I specialise in, I don't really know what to advise you, go to see your GP. And you go to see your GP and they say, oh, it's only hair, it's not important. It's probably just stress. It will go away on its own. Just
Yes.
stop worrying or try and be less stressed.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Then, they kind of don't then really know where to turn. So that's when I like to come along and say, I'm here. I can actually help you.
Yeah. So can the scalp issues, does it affect a particular type of person, do you find, or is it kind of
And
any
so,
hair?
interestingly, a lot of people that have genetic pattern hair loss also tend to have seborrheic dermatitis. So
Okay.
there's a lot of, especially men, that may find that they're just thinning because of genetics, but they might actually find their scalp's really irritated and itchy as well, or it's flaky or it's sore. They might just think, oh, I've got a bit of dandruff, or they don't really relate the two. So sometimes those two can be quite commonly seen together. And I think because of the hair loss issue, the scalp issue is then, again, either minimised or kind of looked over and not really dealt with. But I've seen patients from 7 to probably 87. So,
Wow.
hair loss is something that can affect anyone, and it does affect people. There are many, many different types of alopecia. So alopecia is
Okay.
just a blanket term for hair loss. So if someone says, oh, I've got alopecia, that doesn't tell me anything. So again, it's not really a diagnosis. Alopecia just means hair loss.
Okay.
So there's many
Wow.
different types of hair loss.
Yeah.
We can also quite often have more than one type of alopecia at the same time, or more than one thing going on.
Okay.
So, it really is key to have a full investigation and get to the bottom of what exactly is going on. So we have more common forms like genetic hair loss, postpartum telogen effluvium. So a lot of people find after they've had a baby, they experience shedding.
Yeah.
So there's more common ones, but then there's also quite a lot of quite serious conditions like scarring conditions that we're seeing quite often now. And the problem with some alopecias, if you have a scarring alopecia, once your hair follicle has been destroyed, it's gone. So, there are some instances where the earlier you can see someone and get a diagnosis and get treatment, the more
Cool.
hair you can save. So it's quite important for people to advocate for themselves, I think, but also to know that if they're being fobbed off or they're not happy with what they're being told, to go and seek answers elsewhere, not just kind of leave it and say, oh, well. And I find it's the same with things like psoriasis, really bad eczema. It can seriously affect people's self-esteem, their day-to-day life,
Of course. Yeah.
what they want to do, what they will do, whether they're even going to leave the house or not that day.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I don't want people sat there thinking, oh, well, this is just my life now, this is how it is. I just have to suffer with it. When actually there might be quite a lot that we could do to help.
So what are the different treatment offerings that you can do?
So the first thing that I do is normally ask people to come in for a clinical consultation.
Yeah, it's not
And
something you
that,
can do over the phone.
yeah. Well, again, according to GP, a phone conversation to diagnose alopecia is apparently acceptable. And having never met someone or looked at their hair or
Wow.
scalp, I had one lady in particular who had a very serious scarring condition, and she was only allowed a telephone conversation with her GP, who prescribed her a steroid. I think it was a steroid cream or lotion, just from never having even looked at her, and said, try this. And then that didn't work. She rang up again and said, it's getting worse. And they said, oh, try this antifungal shampoo. Again, having never even physically seen her. And when she came into the clinic and I saw her, she had quite a severe, quite rare scarring condition that was literally eating away at her hair follicles. So luckily I was then able to give her a diagnosis, write a letter to her GP, and actually suggest the correct form of treatment.
Yeah.
And that's obviously led her on a better path. But that's one of the problems, that you go to see your GP, they give you 10 minutes if you're lucky. So with me, you get a full hour and we go through everything. So the first thing is to really investigate every aspect of what might be leading to or not helping your hair loss or your scalp problem. So we look at nutrition, we look at diet, we look at lifestyle, we look at hair care practices, we look at the scalp as well. So I've got a dermatoscope, so I can literally look on a microscopic view, have a really good look at your hair follicles and your scalp and see if there's any inflammation there, any build up, or any other kind of issues. And we can also have a look at the hairs as well, see how thick they are, see if they're, healthy and growing, thriving, or if they're being miniaturized, or if they're smaller or weaker or broken. So we can tell quite a lot from that. But again, it gives you a chance to actually really be heard and
Yes.
and listen to and have a full understanding. And even if I give a diagnosis, I'll never just say, oh, well, this is what you've got. I'll always explain a little bit about how it happens and what it does and the mechanisms. So you leave with answers, and you leave feeling armed and ready to kind of, do something, rather than leave upset or confused or feeling worse than you did before. I offer various treatments at the clinic. So I normally do a hair loss treatment or a scalp treatment. But my favourite treatment is a scalp facial treatment. So it's something, it's really nice. So it's something I've devised basically for everybody. So if you've got a severe scalp problem, I do a scalp transformation treatment. If you have a hair loss issue, then I'll focus on that. But for some people, they just want to come in and treat their hair and scalp and have a really nice experience. So I took all the elements of a facial and basically transferred them to the scalp and the hair, because your scalp is skin too, and it often gets neglected when we think about skincare.
Of course.
So the products that I use salicylic acid, which is a keratolytic cream. So there's no kind of scraping any scale off or harsh treatment or damage or pulling to the hair or scalp. I use a steamer. Really, really, it's really nice, and it just helps to soften and dissolve any scale that's on the scalp and really exfoliate the scalp, cleanse all the hair follicles, make your scalp feel really, really fresh and clean. Even if someone's got a huge amount of build-up on their scalp, you'd be amazed at what one treatment can do just to clear the scalp of scale and build-up. And then obviously cleanse the hair. I've got infrared lamp, UV light. So we do lots of different light therapies, laser. And then I cleanse the hair really nicely. and use either a mask or a foam emulsion. So we're really treating the hair as well. Get a really, really nice relaxing scalp massage. So all those different elements that you would get in a facial, you then get, and come out feeling all kind of sparkly and refreshed and new, and your hair feels all soft and shiny. So it's quite nice.
That sounds quite luxurious and relaxing, but obviously really beneficial as well.
But then obviously there's other things. I mean, for me as a hairdresser, so some trichologists don't offer treatments at all in their clinic. They will just do a diagnosis and then formulate a treatment plan with you that you can take some products and go and do. But for me as a hairdresser, and having those options available, having the trichological grade products available, so it's not just like a Japanese head spa where they put some oil on your scalp and sprinkle some water over you. And I'm sure that's very relaxing and very nice, but I have that medical element to it as well. So I actually have trichological grade products that I'm using. So you'll get far more benefit from the things that I do, but at the same time have that nice relaxing element.
Yes.
But for me as a hairdresser and liking being hands-on, that was really important to me, that I could actually physically do something. And I think a lot of patients feel like that as well. Once you give them a bit of a direction and they've got a treatment plan and there's something they can physically do, it gives you more empowerment and kind of takes that away from you, that this is something that's happened to you and you've got no say in it.
Yes. Definitely gives them back the control and ways to help it improve. I was going to say, not necessarily cure it, but to make it better.
Yeah, we can't necessarily cure everything, but we can certainly treat and manage. If we can't cure it, we can certainly treat and manage it and make it a hell of a lot better and a lot more livable day to day, which is for some people is, I would say almost as good. We do what we can. I do offer other treatments, obviously medical suggestions. I can do microneedling as well. I do microneedling with either serums or exosomes. So I like to have a really nice mixture. So obviously I can recommend kind of medications or treatments. I've got lots of good products. But I also find a lot of people come to me because maybe they've been to their doctor and their doctor's took one look at them from across the room and gone, oh, just use minoxidil, you'll be fine. Well, medical management, firstly, I get patients that maybe have already been through chemotherapy, they've already had lots of drugs, or they've tried minoxidil or finasteride and found that actually it's had really bad side effects for them, or it didn't work for them, or they just want to take a bit more of a holistic approach. Not everybody's happy to just go, oh yeah, give me this drug that, by the way, I'm then going to probably be having to use every single day for life, when I can try other options. So with microneedling, your body then repairs and restores the scalp itself. So it's a much more kind of holistic, natural approach. And so I like to have all those different options that people can have, and then they can work out what's going to suit them.
Yeah, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all thing, is it? It's going to be really subjective to each person, and every condition's got to be so different. Even the same condition on two different people will be different. So
yeah, absolutely. And like I say, it also depends what they have else going along. But yeah, there's no two heads are the same really, but that's what I like, and that's why I like being able to give this bespoke treatments and personalized treatment plans, because then everybody is going to get, it's the opposite of going to the doctor and them saying, oh, why don't you just try this medicated shampoo when they've not even seen you. I can really kind of look at every individual case and be like, well, this is what I think is going to suit you best based on what you've told me.
do you find, will someone come and see you and then maybe have a treatment with you? Do they have to then do that regularly?
So some people do. Again, it depends. Some people like to go and have a facial every month or every 2 months. Some people do it once a year as a treat. So it really depends on the person and kind of how they are and what their condition is. I do laser therapy, which I do recommend people come at least twice a week for, and that's for hair loss. And the same with microneedling. Obviously, you probably would need a course of treatments to see any results. So there are some treatments where you'll get more benefit if you come, but then also, you know, if I clear someone's scalp of scale and they then manage that at home, they're not necessarily going to come. Like some, unfortunately for me, my best success is when they never come back.
Yes.
But all that means to me is I've done a good job.
Yeah, it's good, but yes. Yeah, no, I can see what you mean. So I think when we spoke before, you mentioned that you do a practical scalp treatment day.
Yeah. So obviously coming from my hair background and knowing that I wasn't even really taught about trichology, and knowing that there's this kind of, you know, unawareness regarding the whole kind of profession and where people should go to seek help. I studied for 2.5 years just on the hair and scalp alone, and I had no idea how much I didn't know. And I still don't know everything. I'm still learning all the time. So obviously I'm not expecting every hairdresser to have the knowledge of a trichologist or want to become one. It's perfectly valid to just want to do your job, which is to just make people look good and feel good and work on the hair once it's left the scalp. You
Yes.
know, hairdressers can make you feel amazing and they do a really good job at that. So that's enough. However, I felt it was really important that, especially in this day and age, every business needs that edge. You know, you need a reason why people are going to come and see you. And I find a lot of people, as they go through their hairdressing career, after about 10, 15 years of doing people's hair, they start to get a bit fed up of having these clients come in with these hair and scalp concerns and not having any answers. So for me, it was really important. I then developed a 1-day course, which I do either in Kings Hill in my clinic or I do online for hairdressers, where they can learn just that small amount about common conditions of the hair and scalp and hair loss that their clients might come in with, so that they've got the confidence then to address that. So would they diagnose it and offer treatment? No, they would probably still refer to a trichologist. However, I've known hairdressers where they've seen that a client's got a bald patch in the back of their head and they don't say anything. They're too scared, or they don't want to upset the client, or they don't know what to say, or they think, oh, they must know already. Or they kind of say, oh, well, but if I say something, then they're going to ask me, what do I do about it? And I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm just not going to say anything. So it's about giving them that kind of insight into the expert knowledge and the confidence to raise those concerns with that client, have a conversation in a gentle way. So again, a lot of my patients tell me that the way that they found out they had hair loss was from a hairdresser or an assistant, you know, kind of shouting out, oh my God, all your hair's falling out, or something equally traumatic in the middle of the salon. So it's about approaching it in the right way and then signposting it to the right person. So that's called Hair and Scalp Salon Specialist. And I had such good feedback from that off the back of that, I then also did a practical treatment day. And what I've actually found is that with the Institute of Trichology, we went up every single month for 2 years and we did practical treatments on real life patients. But unfortunately, there are trichologists who also do their qualification online. And so they don't then have access to, if they have to do case studies, they have to find their own patients.
Right.
And what I learned last year is that they weren't really trained in scalp treatments or the different things that you can offer. And I think one of these courses is called Trichology for Hairdressers. So the fact that they then don't get offered any practical treatments that they can do. Hairdressers are hands-on people. We like to do things. So I now do a 1-day in-person, obviously, scalp treatment workshop where we go through keratolytics. We go through all the scalp creams, hair loss treatments, all the light therapies, steaming, just so that people can then have a really good idea of things they can actually physically offer their patients as well. And obviously people that have come on my course, or people that have studied trichology but want that more physical aspect, they've really, really enjoyed that as well. So that's been really good. That again has been in Kent, but I am now looking to expand because people have got to know about the course that are up in kind of Manchester and Wirral and places like that. So I'm now under a bit of pressure to do a course up north somewhere as well, and which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it proves there's obviously a demand for it and people want to know more, even if they're not going to necessarily actively do the treatments themselves. They know where to signpost people, and that can be life-changing for someone.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I said earlier, it's not the case that I believe that every hairdresser should be a trichologist or a scientist or what have you. But we do have to have a certain amount of knowledge. We have to know, what does bleach do to the hair? What does perm lotion do to the hair? Where does colour sit in the hair? What is the pH of hair? We have to know all this stuff for a reason, so we can work safely and that we can offer more to our clients. And there are many salons that have a colour specialist or a hair up specialist or a cutting short hair specialist. So if your salon had a hair and scalp specialist, then imagine, how much better all your consultations would be. I had one hairdresser come on my course, and she said within 3 days of sitting the course, she'd sold out of retail completely in her salon.
Wow.
Just because the conversation had shifted back to, how is your hair and scalp? What are you doing to look after your hair? Rather than perhaps, how was your holiday? Or,
Yeah.
where are you going next week? Of course, those things are important. We want to take an interest in our clients and build that relationship with them. But we also need to really remember that ultimately it's about the hair and the scalp. So that was, it was a big bonus as well, I think, for both of us to realise that she'd focused back on the client again. And the result, like I say, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, it really does. So you obviously do the trichology side of it, and you're a hairdresser, and you're still in the education. Have you always been your own boss?
So kind of. I have worked, I've done everything, but
Okay.
on and off, I've been self-employed for a very long time. And it's quite funny now because I think I've got, even now I'm very kind of peripatetic. I'm freelance, so I teach for several different education companies. I also do kind of qualification verification work for the qualification providers. So I'm like I don't know what the word is, not like, well, kind of an expert that they will get in if they want to produce a new exam or they want to change a qualification. I'm one of the people that they will pull in to make sure that the questions are accurate and that they're up to date and that they work. So I do quite a lot of different things, but mainly it's all on a self-employed basis. So I do really struggle sometimes, even with like my boyfriend, when I'm like, oh, let's go and do this. And he's like, oh, I don't think I've got any more holiday left. Or, oh, I'll have to ask if I can book the day off. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it's very nice to have that freedom.
Yes.
And I've kind of always had it. Most of my jobs, especially teaching, have normally, even when I've been employed, have been part-time.
Okay.
So that I can still have that variation and still keep my hand in the industry. I think it's very important when you're teaching that you also need to still be doing,
Yes.
so that you can keep up to date and you can understand what are clients asking for at the moment, what are they looking for, what are the latest trends. So I've always kind of kept very varied,
Yeah.
but I've always had that element of being self-employed. I did have a franchise for 2.5 years,
Okay.
which is obviously the complete opposite. I was working 80 to 90 hours a week. I
Oh.
worked from we opened on the 9th of May and I worked from the 9th of May till the 27th of September before I got a day off.
Oh my gosh.
And obviously I had no say in what I did every day. So I have been on the other side of it majorly, but that was so much fun. And obviously it was my salon, so it was like my little family. So it was a lot, but certainly prepared me for parenthood. I can definitely tell you that the
Yeah.
demands.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what about all like the other sides of like running a business, being your own boss? Obviously the freedom and everything is great, but obviously there's the admin and the accounting and the marketing. Do you enjoy all that side of it as well?
I do. I think it's very difficult because I think for anyone, when they're on their own and they're just one person, there's always that, oh, what should I be doing it myself? When is it the right time to kind of outsource things? There's obviously that fear then, isn't there, to start involving other people when, if maybe you think you can't afford it, or maybe you think you've got all this time. But even hairdressers in a salon, even if they're employed or they're self-employed, they're in a salon, they're still expected to be social media manager, accountant, marketing, PR, customer feedback, HR. We have everyone, I think these days, we are expected to do it all. My tax return is waiting for me to do it still because I haven't done it yet. But again, I mean, I've been doing these things for a long time. So even my tax return, I'm quite confident in pulling that up and doing it now. And I'm actually very, very creative. One of my jobs a few years ago, I was educating for TG and I was their global colour education coordinator. So I used to have to make all their educational material, all the materials that went out to the stylists, to the salons, all the stuff they used in their training academy in Battersea. And I love I'm a visual person.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I love all that and I love doing it. Do I have the time to do as much as I want? No, of course I don't. And I do find that it's a case of, oh, I'm waiting for a colour to develop. Well, just quickly finish that reel off. Or, I don't, I think I could maybe work on managing my time better. So I have some dedicated admin time
Yeah.
and probably would benefit from some kind of VA or marketing help or support. But I definitely would say that even though I'm not very good at doing it, that if there's something that you can't do in your business, that sometimes it is just so much more worthwhile outsourcing it than
Yeah.
beating yourself with a stick about it and trying to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I've got friends who are extremely creative hairdressers, but absolutely terrible at things like Canva or
Yeah.
social media or anything like that. For me, it's easy. I'm like, oh, I'll just make this reel up and I do it. If you're not, there are templates you can buy. There are people you can access who are really good at it. And when you start thinking, okay, well, maybe if I do 1 or 2 more haircuts a week, that's the money then to pay an accountant,
Yeah.
or sometimes I think we feel like we've got it. And I think as women, even more so, we feel like we should be doing it all. We're just going to take it all on and we're
Yeah.
not
It's
going
very
to ask for
true.
help. And like I say, I've got my little kind of routines now and methods and ways that I can get. And I am very organized. Like my diary's planned up weeks, if not months in advance.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going to be. And I've got my list of things I need to do. But there's nothing. Sometimes I think it's actually far better if there's an element of your business that you're really struggling with, just get someone else to do it.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's letting someone else take over that can be a bit like it's your baby and you're giving it away a bit. But I think if it's something like accounts and figures and things, I'm more than happy to give that to someone else to do.
I mean, but I am way too much of a control freak. I mean, it's the same. Obviously, I do a podcast as well.
Yes, I was just going to ask about that.
So the hair therapy
Nice
podcast. So again, it's very niche. However, people really do enjoy it, and I think people have found it really useful. And we focus on, the conversation around hair loss, hair and scalp health. I have a guest on every single week talking about, so there is either a real life story, so they're sharing their experience, so people who are suffering from hair loss know that they're not alone, or it will be an expert talking about something. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I had the guy who invented the Theradome laser helmet on.
Oh, wow.
And found out that he actually used to be a NASA laser engineer.
Oh,
So that was quite
wow.
interesting.
That's
I've had
incredible.
hostage negotiators on talking about communication and how to deal with difficult clients. So that was quite fun.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, he had no hair, but I still allowed him to come on. It's fun.
There might be an issue as to why that
Yeah.
is.
He said he's not seen any results since he's come on the podcast, but I made him no promises, so that's fine. But again, I could outsource a lot of that, but I'm too much of a control freak, so I do end up doing too much myself. But I think with that, there is a little bit of letting go. But I also feel like if you have a really cohesive brand and you have an authentic voice and you have, how you want things to look and you have all your fonts and your colours and everything's set up, you can communicate that to your team or people that work with you, and they can work within those parameters to make sure that it's still authentic to you and it sounds like it's you coming
Yes.
out. It is
Yes.
possible to, again, I know this, I just don't do it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's one, it's kind of hard to let go, but also if you do it, at least you know you're doing it the way you want it and the way you like it. And yeah, that element of control.
Yeah.
So if you could go back in time and tell your younger self something, give them some advice about life or business or anything, what do you think you'd say?
It's a really difficult one because I'm sure everybody will always sit back and go, oh, I wish I'd never done that, or I regret doing that, or oh, if only I hadn't done this. But I am really, really a massive believer in that everything you do accumulates to where you're at now.
Yes.
So I've had a lot of things that you might consider failing or not right. I moved out of home when I was 17 and had to support myself. I had to quit my A levels. I didn't even finish my A levels. And yet here I am now with a teaching degree and a trichology degree. So there are many ways to get to a certain point. And you can't just, if you don't follow the suggested path, I got married was a lot of that because that's what I felt I should do, from
Yeah.
pressure from society, from family, from my partner. But everything I've done has led me to where I am now. And I interview a lot of guests where, like with the laser engineer from NASA, who's now making hair loss devices. How does that happen? But he has that unique experience from life and from his different education and his different paths that has led him to create this thing that no one else could create. And if they did, it wouldn't be the same because they wouldn't have his
Yes.
knowledge and experience. And I could say to my younger self, oh, why don't you get into trichology at 25? Would I have had the experience and the knowledge of dealing with all those thousands of heads of hair then?
Yes.
Would I have done so well in my exams if I hadn't have had all that time with people,
Yeah.
working on their hair, looking at their scalps, hearing their stories? So everything kind of comes when it does. I think, if anything, that's what I would probably say to my younger self is forget about what you think you should be doing.
Yes. Yes.
But that's about it, really, because yes, I've made mistakes and I've done things that
Yeah.
maybe I wish I hadn't.
Some things you could be like, oh, I wish I'd done that differently. But yeah, you're right. Everything led you to where you are now, and you're where you are because
Because
of
of it.
that.
Yeah.
I think that's bang on, really. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been so interesting. I think I could talk to you for days because I just find just fascinating. Blows my tiny mind. I will put a link to your website and podcast and that in the blurb so that people can find you, and especially if any hairdressers want to get in touch about doing that course, I think that would be so beneficial. But thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome, Lucy. It's been lovely to chat to you.
And thank you again to Purple Frog Science for sponsoring the podcast. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.